Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity is a battle map based game which will never offer the freedom of exploration found in the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. One look on the map and how you complete some smaller side quests without even seeing the person you're helping is a clear sign of this. This is the part that definitely will not be better than in Breath of the Wild, but at the same time there are a number of elements that are indeed better in the linear Age of Calamity than what is found in its bigger and literally older non-linear brother. Specifically story and combat, so be sure to leave a like as we are once again aiming for 3,500 likes, and subscribe, press the notification bell and again for all notifications to help us on our way to 300,000 subscribers. Anyway, it's time to go over what Age of Calamity has over Zelda Breath of the Wild. Storytelling. Legend of Zelda is, according to Nintendo, the storytelling franchise. Looking at the complex branch timeline of the series and the big emphasis on narrative in 2011 Skyward Sword, it is easy to understand why. It is just that since then, the Zelda team has distanced themselves from being proper storytellers and focused more on creating the most interactive Zelda gameplay experience to date. Naturally, this came at the expense of cohesive edge-of-the-seat storytelling, as the story in the present wasn't exactly that engaging. Reclaim the Divine Beast and the powers of the deceased champions. Reclaim your memories and crush Ganon. That is literally what it is. But hidden outside the cutscenes is the Hyrule with the richest lore and a past that begs to be explored deeper through cutscenes, but which isn't really the case in Breath of the Wild, which left much of the story in diaries and journals. This is understandable, as Zelda, much like in Zelda 1, didn't appear in person until the very end of the game. At the same time, the fragmented non-linear memories could easily have been ruined if they were not collected in a linear order. This goes in particular for the build-up of the two turning points which took place 100 years ago, that of Zelda's Turn of Heart and the awakening of Calamity Ganon. The best way to summarize Breath of the Wild's strength when it comes to story is its ability to serve as a mystery box. From a narrative perspective, Age of Calamity beats it down to a pulp. For one, it is told as one complete narrative set in one time period by the same characters, and told both through cutscenes and gameplay, and most importantly, delivers answers to the many questions left behind in Breath of the Wild. Or actually, it delivers a story with an introduction, rise, turning point or climax, falling action and catastrophe, plus hope for the future leading into Breath of the Wild. This is the exact structure of Gustav Freytag's pyramid dramatic structure of a tragedy, and that is exactly what Age of Calamity delivers. The introduction being the monster and Yiga invasion, which is repelled on all fronts by our heroes. The rise is the appointment of the champions, the journey and mastering of the divine beasts, and destruction of any monsters that may arise. The climax or turning point is the second invasion, rise of Calamity Ganon, and battle to get to Calamity Ganon. Falling action is the hopeless battle against overwhelming forces of evil, Zelda unable to awakening her power at Hyrule Castle, and obviously the scene of the hundreds of guardians. And the catastrophe is the fall of the four champions, all of the Hylian civilization, the siege of Akkala Citadel, and the Hylian champion Link falling unconscious. The emphasis of the catastrophe is that our heroes are in a much worse position than they started, and though Zelda gets some last battle cries upon unlocking her power, she still ends up entangled in a complete tragedy. The century-long sealing of Calamity Ganon, where the princess has no other choice but to wait for the resolution that will be delivered by Link from the Shrine of Resurrection. That is the luxury of a story-driven experience, which sole purpose is to advance you in the story towards the apocalypse of Central Hyrule, and explaining to you step by step how Zelda, the Kingdom of Hyrule, and the champions after first repelling the enemy lost during the second invasion. We get to learn in detail what went wrong, and how Calamity Ganon, and through it imprisoned Ganondorf, outmaneuvered everyone, and claimed complete victory until Princess Zelda unleashed her sealing power. Speaking of personalities and character building, Breath of the Wild introduced us to a brand new world of Hyrule, full with new characters, or where some even remember you from 100 years ago. It is just that not much was presented once again in regards to these main characters outside of diaries, or more specifically, lack of being dynamic and traveling with you from location to location. The only exceptions being Sidon, Yunobo, Teba and Riju, but only once, and only to lead you to the divine beasts. Or in past Zelda games, leading you to the dungeons. The absolute minimum when it comes to Zelda. In fact, the only person that had any character development across the game was Princess Zelda through the memories. When the scenes took place 100 years prior, it left much less impact on us as the player. The Champion's Ballad offers us more insight, like Urbosa having a close relationship to Zelda's mother, but still very little, and in most cases we are told, not shown, the crucial moments in question. You probably get the point. Outside of one cutscene between Link and Mipha and Zelda and Urbosa, there isn't much exploration of anyone else but Zelda's past in Breath of the Wild, and thus Age of Calamity was absolutely required to tell the story of the Gerudo, Zora, Goron and Rita champions, and the Sheikah squad, consisting of young adult Impa, Purah and Robbie, well them and King Rhombus Pharomas Hyrule. We know that Age of Calamity provides much more insight into the characters we fight as. Link has finally been confirmed to be from Hateno Village and was most likely forced to buy back his ancestral home to save it from demolition. Urbosa shares more of her own past, including her friendship with the deceased Queen of Hyrule. We learn far more about Zelda's troubled relationship with her father, the crazy scientist of Hyrule, Impa's commitment to protect Zelda until the Master Sword takes over that duty, and Mipha's interest for Link. Seeing all of these crucial moments that we were just told about in the memories and diary entries will add a whole new layer to the characters, especially the four that lay down their life in the battle against Calamity Ganon and his blights. With the drama structure of a tragedy that we have laid out in Age of Calamity, we see that the potential for substantial character development for Link, the champions and the Sheikah is there, and with several of these even returning for Breath of the Wild 2, it allows for 3 complete arcs. First tragedy, then hope, and finally resolution by confronting the true source of evil. Then again, any character development in Age of Calamity outside of Zelda will already be greater than what is found in Breath of the Wild. It also helps that we're likely to see better voice direction. The voice acting in Breath of the Wild was a mixed bag, not due to the casting, but rather the voice directions provided to the English cast. From what we have heard from Age of Calamity, it appears that the feedback has been taken to heart, and that the voice actors will deliver a much more complete performance, both in cutscenes and during gameplay. After all, they will have a complete story to perform in an active battle setting. At the same time, it greatly helps that more of the voice actors are actually playing characters around the same age. All main characters in Age of Calamity, with the exception of King Rome, are around the same age as the voice actors portraying them. And though in most cases, like the champions in Zelda's, they are still the same age as in Breath of the Wild, it will be a great benefit for Impa to play as a young adult instead of an old lady, since the voice actress is obviously a young female. And will also greatly benefit from the inclusion of the energetic young adult Purah and Robbie. Just listen to this.
Rule 1 of the researcher's code is to never give up.
Oh yeah! Check it! It won't be easy, but we're not gonna let that stop us, eh?
Isn't it perfect? Then there is the matter of seamless transitions, in particular from cutscenes to action and from action to cutscenes and back from cutscenes to action. It also helps that we are bringing the voice actors into the gameplay, so it feels like the cutscene and the characters from it just joined us in the battle. In Breath of the Wild we could go from a truly amazing cutscene to crickets. In Age of Calamity, it is the polar opposite, as the game is entirely about preparing for battle in cutscenes and then being granted full control in battle scenarios until victory is achieved and we get a resolution. And that brings us over to the combat in Age of Calamity, filled with action, unique character traits and attacks, but there's more to it than it seems. Obviously, Breath of the Wild was an open-air exploration game, where combat wasn't exactly as encouraged due to the weapon durability system found in the game. A mechanic which discouraged us from searching out monsters that would get a real beating from us, all due to the fear that our precious sword, bow or shield would break in that skirmish. In Age of Calamity, and as of the moment of recording 7 playable characters and the combat, even more than the story is what sells the game. Thus, it goes without saying that the combat in this game, especially when we can fight while also exploring settlements like Zora's Domain, Goron City and Gerudo Town, is simply better than in Breath of the Wild. After all, the 2017 Zelda title was more focused on defense, and at times even avoiding skirmishes altogether. Speaking of enemies, it looks like nearly all enemies and overworld bosses found in Breath of the Wild are also in Age of Calamity, so most likely we will have around the same amount of enemy types to fight. Yes, there is some button mashing involved as this is a Warriors experience, but at the same time, you also gain new, more advanced battle combos by completing quests and missions. Outside of the combos, you still have the same mechanics for Link as found in Breath of the Wild. You have your runes, your paraglider, your regular attacks and down thrust, defense and dodging. flurry rushes, and so on. And Link is only one of 6 other characters with equally as much love added to them, since Mipha, Revali, Daruk, Urbosa, Impa, and Sheikah Slate Master Zelda all have unique and incredible movesets that fit them perfectly. Do I need to say more than a Fatal Frame Warriors attack? That alone makes Playable Zelda a complete badass in this game, and is hopefully a sign of things to come in Breath of the Wild sequel. Now, before we conclude, I want to say this. I believe that the weapon durability system in Breath of the Wild was a good idea. It is just that weapons were not durable enough, and greatly diverted from the combat scene in past Zelda titles, where weapons simply didn't break. In every Zelda game, up to Breath of the Wild, combat was as important as exploration. It is even implied in the very first quote in the Zelda series.
"It is dangerous to go alone. Take this."
And that is what I truly hope the Zelda team takes to heart for the future, since Age of Calamity has no weapon durability, but instead a weapon crafting system, where we, by visiting blacksmiths on the map, like this one located in Rohirrim Settlement, can improve our weapons by using lesser weapons we collect during battles, to fuse them in order to level up the weapons we actually want to use, to say beat up our own allies and other playable characters, like poor Daruk here, in certain training scenarios. Yes, we can actually beat up our allies in certain side quests, and even playable champions. And outside of Mabba Ranch, or more specifically carbon copy of Lon Lon Ranch, I know of a certain Revali that deserves a real smashing for targeting an arrow towards Link. If you haven't already, then be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to help us towards 300,000 subscribers, press the notification bell, and once again for all notifications, do not miss any of our upcoming Nintendo Switch, Age of Calamity, and Breath of the Wild 1 and 2 videos. Finally, a big thanks to all our generous patrons on patreon.com/commonwealth, and in particular to our royal producer Charles Shash. We hope more of you can join them, and please enjoy one or both of these 2 awesome videos.